Thank you.
Well, thank y'all very much for having me here tonight. Like he said, my name is Kenneth LeCroy. I'm with BREC Conservation. Just see if this one, I turned it off so I wouldn't futz with it. And now it doesn't. There we go. Okay, so just a quick introduction. You'll see at the end of the thing, you'll have all my contact information. My last name's LeCroy. It's not spelled Louisiana style, so I'm definitely from Texas. Before I came on with BREC, I was actually a seasonal park ranger in Montana with the Bureau of Land Management. I worked with state parks for about 7 years, both at Fontainebleau for a year, but most of the time I was at Chico State Park. And I came on with BREC at the end of 2019. So I've been all over the state a little bit of background with all that stuff. Yes, I fly fished a little bit in Montana. I've worked with another ranger who's really into it, got the gear, and then I'm like, okay, other stuff come up. So I got a little idea what's going on with it. I always like, with the introduction, I always like to get in a little bit, because BREC conservation kind of changed in 2019. I don't know what the relationship with BREC prior to 2019 was and who you were dealing with, but there were some changes with that. Just some basic general fishing stuff. I know the Blueways are another big thing that's going on with BREC right now, specifically access to some of the riverways through Baton Rouge, and obviously the hot button thing of the Lakes Project. The two parts of BREC conservation. So in 2019, BREC had been growing the conservation department out to the point where they had all these conservation properties, all the ponds to deal with. There was programs, someone has to take people out on hikes. So in 2019, they kind of split it in half. So what I work with is conservation programming. We're part of CORE, so conservation, outdoor recreation, and environmental education. So if any of y'all done any kayak programs with BREC with Outdoor Adventure, that's a sister department with us. Anyone that's gone to Blue Bonnet, check the birds out, hit the trails, they kind of work together as a group. But conservation kind of does the parish-wide programming. So Frenchtown, Kendallwood, all the hiking trails at Forest and all that is what we prioritize. Outreach like this is my job. And also we operate the catfish rodeos and definitely the rainbow trout, at least the contest with the rainbow trout stuff. So natural resource management, they kind of moved with a separate division. They're with planning and engineering. They're a little bit more focused on planning how to use the recreation areas, set up those conservation sites, trail planning and construction, ponds and stocking. So they decide kind of where the stocking is. They make sure the ponds are healthy before they do the stocking, and they decide those spots. We work together where those are stocked before programs. And then native plantings and no-mow zones. So if you've ever seen any of those growth areas like at Howell or at Forest where they're doing all the wildflowers, that's their end of stuff too. There is a lot of stuff we work together with. Next month we have our Bio Blitz, which is 24 hours of finding every possible living thing at Frenchtown. They help us with the catfish rodeo, so stalking, they do a lot of the judging with stuff, and we run all the other fun activities with that. Obviously I can't get away with this. This list is I wasn't expecting the font to be this small. If y'all want this, all this is on the BREC webpage too. So brec.org/fishing. We'll give you all this information. But there's 14 direct ponds that we manage. Management means like they may be on our property, like at Hooper Road Park or at like Doyle's Bayou. They're there. They're naturally natural. We'll see what ends up there. There's other ones like Perkins Road or Forest or Zachary where they are consistently stocked. Or I don't want to say consistently, but they are maintained with stocking, so with stuff goes on. City Park Lake is technically ours, and we manage that directly. Eventually it's going to flow into University Lake, but we allow access to University Lake at Wampum in that boat launch there. And if I'm shooting through stuff, you want me to cover something with you, you can raise your hand, you can stop me. Just the basic fishing guidelines. We do require a basic freshwater fishing license. If you have that, you're usually good. That's usually the first question. Do we have to have a fishing license? If the state says you have to have a fishing license, you have to have a fishing license to fish at a BREC pond. For general hours of operation, most parks are open from sunrise to sunset, so once it's dark, you're not allowed to be in there. We say that definitely before catfish rodeos, we stock in advance. People like to go in at night and take some of that out. So, but yes, if it's dark, don't go in there. City Park, just follow the guidelines to that park. So City Park Lake, Doyle's Bayou is at sunset is when those close. Some of them have closed at 10 o'clock, whatever the park guideline is for that. Yes, sir.
Are you doing stockings other than rainbow trout in the ponds and other ponds, lakes?
I will get back to that. That's actually probably my next slide.
Okay.
I'll get to stocking. That's always the biggest question with stuff. So I'll definitely get to stocking. There's one oddball. I don't know if any of y'all know that you can actually fish at Oak Villa. So it's off of Oak Villa Boulevard before it turns into Jor. The only time you're allowed to access that pond is when they've got softball tournaments or league play there. But it's a nice, pretty 2-acre pond. It doesn't get fished a lot because it's usually closed.
I noticed the gates open more during the day. I haven't gone in there, but cause I work near there and drive by a decent amount, and for years they were always closed. I don't know if they were working on the lights or something for a while.
Yeah, I think at that ballpark they were putting in turf fields and working on the lights. They've been upgrading a lot of lights of those fields. Technically, you're only allowed to access that when there's baseball. We had that issue with someone calling in, like they've always let us in there. Technically, it's during that, but it usually means most weekends. This time of year, all weekends are open. So that's a little bit of hidden gem. Just be aware of that if you're going on a weekend. That's not the same thing as like Central Sports Park, which is up in Central. Nice little 2.5 acre pond. That's accessible at all times. So you can go during tournaments, you can go whenever you want. The vegetation's nice there. Most people don't think about that pond. We were actually going to try to do the catfish rodeo there this past February, but some scheduling stuff came up with it. Now, most of it is bank fishing. If you can get your kayak in at Greenwood, it's kind of hard to access that one with your kayak. University Lakes, you're allowed to fish. It should open up to City Park Lake once that's accessible again. And then, of course, all the Blueways, you're allowed to fish those. Now, definitely during rainbow trout, the reason why I say this is we have if we post some kind of limit up on there, we do just request y'all follow those. It's kind of weird, definitely with rainbow trout, why are we holding everyone to 4? Well, hiding when those go in there is really tough, and making sure that people allow everyone to fish. You can also catch and release them. So if you're out there, I know a lot of people with spinning gear don't like to catch and release, they like to catch and keep. You can catch 4, you can take home 4 with you, but you can catch like crazy all day if you just want to catch and release. But if we have some kind of restrictions up, we just ask to follow those. Okay, stocking. So when we normally do our stockings is always before the Go Fish Catfish Rodeo. We put somewhere between 750 to 1,000 pounds of catfish in for those events. That way there's something guaranteed catching on those. We often hold those about twice a year. We had our last one that last Saturday of February, so the Saturday right after Mardi Gras is usually when we try to hold it. That was up in Zachary. We always do one October date too. We try to stick to a little bit bigger ponds, so we'll likely never do it at like Perkins or at Forest because they're just too small. But we kind of do that on a rotating cycle just so we're spreading around the parish. Of course, the rainbow trout. This is actually the most heated question with stuff. When do we stock them? I can't tell you. Because the commission, I can't even tell the commission when we're getting those. We try to keep that as hush as possible. If you kind of look at when we do stuff, you can kind of figure it out. But we do our stocking in January, so we're not stacking on top of the wildlife and fisheries stockings usually in January. So we do our event, we run it right up to theirs, and then that's when their stocking goes in. Now, in general, for overall stocking, to kind of get to the question with stocking, Burbank Sports Park, that is the adopted pond with LDWF. That's the one that they constantly stock with different stuff. They also will do maintenance stocking at different ponds occasionally. It's usually sometime in the late summer, early fall, and it's usually yearlings or smaller fish just to maintain the populations. Those are, I think that's done in partnership with, that Get Out and Fish. Burbank is where they hold their events. That's usually where they do their rainbow trout stocking here. And then they do occasional stockings around just to make sure the populations are healthy. I think they're usually largemouth bass, brim. I don't think they do as much catfish with it. We usually are the ones that do the catfish stockings with stuff. So I can't tell you the exact time because it changes by year. Kind of when stuff comes up is when they do that stocking.
Do they do surveys in each pond to determine which ones need it? Or
I think they do it, and they do it in conjunction with their natural resource management department, because they're always keeping the eye of health on stuff. Some ponds have had like construction done on them. I know like in 2020, I think they were putting in new fishing docks at Blackwater, and that messed up with some of the stuff at that site. Or if it floods, it comes up and fish wash out, and they kind of gauge with that site. You can kind of get a feel when stuff, with every stocking, for some reason, everyone knows when it's stocked. So if you do hear about a stocking and you guaranteed want to get it. Yeah. So people ask, we're like, we can't tell you. And then we try to give a little bit of warm up period to get the fish acclimated before we let the public know, but everyone already knows. As long as they're not cast netting, I'm a little less worried about it, but we've had that in the past with rainbow trout where people will go out there with bait casting nets and take out as much as they can. Trout are expensive. We were looking at it because we were having somebody asking about that. I think this year's stocking was about $5 a pound. So yeah, if you get a 2-pound fish, it's a $10 fish. So yeah, so yes, if you see people out there definitely doing rainbow trout and they're taking more, let me know. I don't know when people are doing it, but if you tell me and give me pictures, I can get a little bit more mean about it. But that's the general stocking cycle. Keep an ear out with that kind of stuff. The next thing I know that was brought up with emails, I'm probably a lot of kayak fishermen in here too. One thing they don't think about access are the Blueways. So the Blueway system it's managed through BREC, but it's a partnership with access to multiple waterways through the parish. Right now, Bayou Fountain is the only dock that has access for that. You can access Greenwood with that, but this is the only one that was open. I don't know if anyone's been down towards Highland Road Park recently. There's a big, massive project going on Bayou Fountain right now. Not sure when they're going to be done with that project. They shut us down. They told us last minute, oh, we got to close everything down. We're in the process of getting that figured out. We'll see. It may take a little bit longer than we were expecting with it. But the benefit of these Blueways is to allow eventually, hopefully, access all the way through the parish, depending on river. So hopefully at some point we can get complete co-meet access, at least to point through the parish. I don't think there's any plans on the A-meet, but they'll be able to access the A-meet from the co-meet and other stuff. But right now, Bayou Fountain, it's closed temporarily. We don't know what the plan is. Some of that means some of the Army Corps engineer mitigation stuff was bigger than we were expecting, and there may be a requirement to fix some extra stuff that we weren't planning for, so it's going to extend a little bit longer. The fun one right now is the Bayou Manchac one. That is a really cool dock. It's different than the one compared at the Bayou Fountain one. It's actually going to be on a floating pier. The gangplank's going to shift with it, and it is going to have more of a fishing dock on that site too. Access to that's going to be very fun because the goal is, and I'll get to that in a second, you have complete access to Bayou Manchac down to the mouth all the way to the headwaters with it, and hopefully eventually it'll connect to Bayou Fountain with that. There's not a specific date on when they're opening. It's getting super close. The best way to find out when it's going to be open, if you want to follow the BREC Conservation Facebook page, whenever something happens, we post it pretty quickly. I think they're talking about a soft opening soon. I don't know exactly when. There's some sidewalk stuff that they have to do because the road cut through, so there has to be access, and the gravel road needs to be worked on a little bit, and they're working on some of the landscaping. It's not far off. So if you're interested in that, you like that bayou, it's a fun one. The water can fluctuate quite a bit. The water's really low. They've been working on getting a lot of the snags out of there, so there's not as many safe spots for the fish, but the fishing should be fun on that river. It's one that most people don't access. Now, long-term Blueways goals, Ward Creek access is going to be the big main access, the next one. So Airline Community Park, so where the fairgrounds used to be, there's a big master plan with big construction on that site. It's going to turn into a larger park, similar to like Forest Community Park or Independence Park, where there's going to be a lot of stuff going on. Part of that project is to add access to Ward Creek, either just north of Manchac or on the other side on the Manchac side, but there's going to be kayak access at that site. Did someone have a question? Okay. What the goal is is running parallel to Warden's Creek, is already a greenway. So Blueways is open up all the waterway access. The greenway is a trail system that allow you to walk all the way through the parish. It crosses over borders. BREC kind of acts as the intermediary to make sure everything's operating. The goal, hopefully, and I don't know what the long-term plan is to apply certain access definitely right there at like the Mall of Louisiana, right there at Seagan Marketplace, and allow access to that spot. I don't know what the fishing quality is going to be there, but I guarantee if we start getting more people kayaking on their fishing, there'll be more push to get that quality up. Now the Comeet River, that access is much more up in the air. We don't know exactly what that's going to look like. Blackwater is also in a master plan, so there's a lot of talk about providing some kind of access. It's just hard to get a drive-in access from where that parking area is down to the Comeet. If you're willing to portage your kayak and access there, that's fine. If you want to walk your fly gear down and fly fish that stretch of the river, that's absolutely fine too. You just got to make sure where you're at. Knowing water access laws in Louisiana, it's one of those like, it's not as nice as like, oh, between floodline and floodline. So just be aware of where you're at on that property. A lot of people don't complain about north or south of it, but I don't want to tell anybody, please go trespass to go fish. So just be aware where you're at. The good thing is BREC owns the frontage right there, and if you're working down Comeet River Park, which is another conservation area and mountain biking trail, we got the frontage on a good stretch of the Comeet there too. So you can kind of work your way in, work your way back out. Now, access at Fringetown. So Fringetown's the next big building for conservation. The reason why we're doing the BioBlitz there is the education building is almost done, the new building there. I do know that down to the Comeet is going to be in one of the next phases in building. They're going to create access to that. I don't know what that's going to look like traffic-wise. I know phase 4, which could be 10, 15 years down the road, is hopefully eventually Fringetown. Amy access down that way as well. Comeet access is going to likely open at first, but that's probably 10 to 15 years down the road.
By access, you mean like a road or somewhere to like directly launch?
Yeah, if you've been out to Fringetown,
yeah,
you know the gravel road that kind of runs parallel to the train tracks. The goal is to build another road towards the Comeet. That should give you access down to the Amite. You can run that stretch. Now the Amite's current is a little bit tougher going upstream than running the Comeet or even Manshack, but it's in the talks with that. Nothing specific with the Amite, but the Comeet is in development. There's possibilities with that. There's a lot more stuff on the Blueways webpage too. There's some other stuff that's mentioned as possibilities for the future. I didn't want to bring those up here because they're very we've got to get a lot of permissions to get those accesses, but the goal is to hopefully open up a lot of stretches of really good flowing water through here. Okay.
Many years ago, they talked about a boat launch at Florida Boulevard, south end of Fringetown area.
Okay.
Is it?
Okay, because thinking about that property right there where the headwater, where it meets right there at the parish line. I do know we don't own the Baton Rouge side of it. I don't know. I know people access. You can see it all the time. People just drive down there and fish. I don't know the legal access.
Partial service road heads back that way.
Okay. That wouldn't be ours. I haven't heard any direct.
I thought it was on the very southern end of the Fringetown.
Yeah, like if you were right there, right in the middle of it, you could see where the confluence, and that's Fringetown right there. So I drive by that daily, and I can tell is it going to be? Because my office is going to be at Fringetown eventually, and I can see if it's flooded. Am I going to be able to get to work or not? So yeah, I don't know about the access with that. That wouldn't be our property, so I don't know. I think it's being used anyways by the public. The owner might not care about it or haven't made a stink about it. I wouldn't suggest that because I think it's technically trespassing. Hopefully we'll get our open on there too. Now, if you want to fish Fringetown, you can get to the Amite River, taking that gravel road all the way to where it ends. There is a beach there. You could fish that stretch and it would be an interesting fish. Hiking down gets rough because there's some cut banks in that area, so it's you'll have to zigzag your way through, and that water comes up super quick. But if you're not too far off that beach area, it would be a fun area to cast. Okay, so the University Lakes project, I wish I had a little bit more information on this. Since it's a multi-organization thing, they kind of keep a little bit of hush, and then, or not hush, but it's they don't publicize a lot of it too much. And then every time they put a phase out there, something comes up. So it's one of those. So last summer they did start doing test dredging in there. That's how they're able to assess that the water's only 4 or 5 feet deep. It's supposed to be 20 feet, and that's what's kind of driving the need to do the project. Definitely at City Park Lake with all the algae. Part of the goal is to get it deeper, and that should help with some of the phosphorus and some of the chemicals. So they did test dredging in there. The goal is hopefully get some of the early phase stuff later. I mean, it hasn't started yet. It should be this spring, hopefully later in the summer. They were trying to start this winter, then other stuff comes up. But at least phase 1 is completely funded. So phase 1 is they're going to dredge all the smaller lakes, the City Park Lake and all the little small tertiary ones. University Lake is going to be in phase 2 is when they're going to dredge that one out, since there's a lot of other construction that's going with that and planning with it. Now, the big thing is City Park Lake, they're actually trying to put in a forebay. In that forebay, they're trying to work with that erosion issue. So instead of like keeping the same thing, dredge it, and it's going to be full in 50 years again, they're working on something that's going to block and hold some of that sediment, or at least slow down the flow of the sediment so it'll go through and it'll stay deeper longer, and we can mitigate some of those nutrients that are causing the algae problem. The cool thing is the May Street Bridge, so what's kind of splitting City Park Lake from University Lake. The goal with that is they're going to redo that bridge. They're actually going to widen the access, so technically, City Park Lake will connect to University Lake. It'll be wide enough to kayak through. The bridge is going to be tall enough, and I believe on the north side of that, there's going to be parking, and that's where the new launch is going to be for City Park Lake. There should be fishing areas there, and they should connect the two ponds. So that's going to be really cool access, and then a little bit more on the south side, it's more for pedestrian issues, and it's caused a lot of stink around in that neighborhood. They're going to put a bridge over in the Stanford Avenue area, and it's actually going to go over the water. They're worried about is it going to impact stuff? That's one of the bigger fights with it, and I think that's what's delaying some of the start. But what's really cool is with the dredging, their goal is to change the shoreline, so they're going to create a living shore, so it's going to be more of a gradual grade going into it. And it's going to have like a natural area for to help with spawning, to help with vegetation that's going to help protect those younger fish. And that's what's going to be really cool. So all the soil that they're going to go through, they're going to redo the shores. There's going to be a slider slope in there. And that first area right around the pond is going to be a little bit shallow area where there'll be natural vegetation and more protection for a lot of the bugs and all the macro invertebrates that will help with the fishery. Now phase 2, not for sure when that's going to start, but that's when the big part of the University Lake is going to get dredged, and that's when they're going to go through and do the bigger digging on that. And then most of the other improvements are going to be on the south side later on. Of the lakes, that's the healthiest one right now, and it's going to be a lot more projects for that one, so I think that's why it was delayed to phase 2. So yes.
For City Park Lake, do you know about how deep it is now and how deep they're hoping to get?
I think it originally was 20 feet, so I think it's, of any of them, it's probably the shallowest of all of them. Hopefully they'll get it in at least areas where it's going to be 20 feet in range. Hopefully. I don't know exact with that. It's going to be a lot deeper than what it is. So kayaking should be more fun. It should be more open areas where there's less vegetation too, so open water should be interesting.
You said they'll keep some shallow areas, obviously.
Shallow areas, and it's going to be a much more gradual edge. If you get definitely in the University Lake areas, it's a hard drop, so it goes from regular grade down to 4 feet, and then it levels out, where this is going to be a slower gradual thing, and it's going to be a little bit more protective for the fishery. So those were the main points I want to hit on. Okay, fire away if y'all have got questions. It's one of those.
The Wards Creek addition to the BREC fishing areas is kind of an interesting subject. If you go across Sigan Lane at Wards Creek, that water is, except for during rains, which makes it high, it's like a little ditch. But
Yeah.
after 10 days of no rain or 2 weeks of no rain, it doesn't look like it's something that you would want to fish in.
I don't know if it's going to be a great fishery. I think most of it's kayakable, and that's the bigger push is at
But
least
it must be
having kayak.
further downstream, closer to.
Yeah,
Near where it runs into Manchac, right? I mean, it's not too far
Yeah.
from that Manchac Park.
Yeah, so where the launch is going to be is probably maybe a quarter mile or half a mile north of Manchac, where the mouth is. That area is going to be similar like Bayou Fountain. That south end where it hits Manchac does hold a little bit more water. So.
Do you know if they're digging that Wards Creek area out in the Baton Rouge area a little deeper to accommodate a little bit better flow for the rains to drain out?
That I don't know. I don't know if they, because like Bayou Fountain and the work that they're doing on them was with the part of the Five Rivers plan, and they're going through and working through those. I know they wrapped up Jones Creek. They're working on Bayou Fountain. I don't know what the plan
I think
is
they're
for Ward
removing
Creek.
the trees and the debris, but I don't know if they're going any digging it any.
I don't know if they're dredging or going deeper. That would
They're
be
just
my
kinda
thing.
Taking the trash out.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not for sure exactly what they're doing with Ward Creek on that. I think, well, at least from our end, we're working on access. I don't know if we're the ones that are going to be doing the dirt work or any of that. So we will see. I'm not for sure exactly with Ward Creek, other than we're trying to create access points for it. You can't make the water go there though. So that would be something that is similar to like the Lakes project, where it'd have to be multiple organizations working together and try to get it funded. I don't know. I really can't tell you any special honey holes. I think y'all are out there fishing more than I am, so I can tell you. And most of the stuff that we stocked recently isn't going to necessarily hit on flies, but should be fun. I do know there.
If you need to stop some other stuff, then.
Yeah, that's one of those things. It's one of those. It's a process.
Flies pretty much hit anything, by the way.
Yeah. Well, you can catch.
Are you saying they're just really small, or that they're stocking fish that are not really small?
It's either fingerlings or yearling ones,
Yeah.
so it's one of those, like, they may not be biting on stuff. I'm always surprised what comes out of ponds too.
You just set a challenge, that's what I
Yeah,
I don't know when the stockings are going to be.
Where is
Like I said, I don't know any special honey holes. But like, there are some spots like Oak Willow that's not constantly getting hit, and if you can time it on weekends during that stuff, it could be a fun one.
What do you catch there? Has anyone fished there?
Fished once, bass and bluegill and everything.
Yeah, so it's going to be a standard warm water fishery. If there's anything surface popping, it's going to be largemouth and brim. I was surprised at the end of February they were still pulling rainbow trout out at Zachary. I don't know how hot it is. They might be getting interpreter with the water, but this little downturn may. So if there's any shot for trout, this is your shot to go get it. You might get a weekend. It looks like it's going to stay cold through the weekend. That nice rain, I don't know. It might be helpful. I did go ahead and put my contact information there. I don't have any cards to give out. Since I've been with BREC, I've moved all over the place, and I haven't wanted to buy cards yet because I know I was supposed to end up somewhere and then I moved somewhere else. But these are the best ways to contact me. So my BREC email address is kenneth.lecroy@brec.org. Yes, sir.
I was gonna say, it would help a lot for us if you would raise the canopy of all the trees on the
Well, I think Army Corps engineers helped out with some of that stuff. So yeah, they move the canopy quite a bit. So most of the ponds are pretty accessible. If you can get nice open shots, there should be nice open shots. Definitely Central Sports Complex, I don't hear a lot of people fishing it, and people are fishing catfish there. It's been stocked with brim and bass. So there's a lot of cattail, and the wind can get a little bit rough. It's a deep hole in there. So if you're timing your cast right, you could get them into some interesting stuff. It's an area that when I go, I don't see a lot of people fishing. Granted, it may be the time of day I'm going. Let me think, what else is, but like,
Seen some pretty big gar swimming around in Greenwood.
yes. Greenwood's always interesting. It's one of those, like, we've tried to do rainbow trout there. It's just such a big pond. Like, it's hard. They all go to the middle, and it's hard to get all the shore fishing there. And then, like, access to kayak is a little rough. It's a fun site to fish. Also, with the Greenwood Master Project, they're going to go through and expand the bayou that runs in there. So the goal is to expand access, at least kayaking in there, open up some of the areas that aren't fishable. They're going to open up some of the bayou that's north. Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, a lot of the pond is really shallow.
Yeah. That's part of the plan with that is the Cypress Bayou. They're going to open up the north side all the way up to the north side of Greenwood, and it's supposed to run through. So that's going to be expanded out a little bit. Now, I will say if you're fishing that area more towards where the golf course clubhouse is, where the boardwalk is that connects that trail, the south side, the shallow end towards the spillway. Be careful right now. There's a big gator that's hanging out right there. We're working on trying to get it removed. He probably got washed down from the higher up, and he's like, this is the perfect area to catch stuff. So just be aware of that.
There was a bunch of rainbow trout here, young.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. So, but yeah.
They didn't even know any better.
They don't. That's the thing, is like the first few days, it's like we don't let people know because it will kind of start coming to the edges. But the really cold snap right before Christmas was really beneficial for the rainbows. I think they hung on a little bit longer because people weren't going to go out in 20-degree weather necessarily. Or very, very motivated people are going to be going out in that weather. The motivation might be like get away from their family, and that may be the Christmas stuff. But that should be fun. I mean, be fine. If y'all do have any questions that didn't come up, I know we were talking before possibly doing trainings in partnership with that stuff. That's something we could work out later on with things. That would be great. Trying to figure out a way to do, because our big events, we were expecting somewhere between 200 and 300 people at those events, and it's kind of hard to like, it's very spinning tackle, put some bait on the line, catch catfish. And it's fun, and it's a good way to get some kids invested in it, but there's kids that are already hard charging and would benefit from learning something different. Fly fishing would be the direction, and it's something we could work out directly later. I know rainbow trout come out around Christmas time. It's a little bit rough, but it's something we could, but yes. So I can send you all the PowerPoint. I don't think there's too much information other than my own. If you can't remember mine, do conservation@brec.org, and it will work its way to me. That's how I found out about y'all were wanting to talk, and it will get back to us. So I do appreciate letting me come and talk. If y'all have any other questions about BREC stuff, BREC conservation, what Outdoor Adventure is doing, I can do the best I can. And if it's above my pay grade, I'll just tell you it's above my pay grade and send you to who you need to talk to. So I appreciate it. Thank y'all very much.